Hi, I'm Dan McInerney. I'm at Utah State University, and I've been part of quite a few AHA projects over these many years dealing with teaching and learning. And I just wanted to introduce today's discussion about AP redesign of courses and exams by offering, well, frankly, some reassurance to those of you who've joined the discussion and might be thinking to themselves, wow, I'm really kind of far out of it with this, with questions about the AP and what they've been up to for years and how this affects my students and my classes. The reassurance, if I were you, I wouldn't worry about it. If you're taking part in this discussion, you've probably been taking part in quite a few conversations in the AHA about questions tied to teaching and learning. And you know that those discussions go back quite a few years. One of the biggest sets of discussions was back in 2012 with the inauguration of the Tuning Project, which asked all of us, from the perspective of a course we teach, a curriculum in which that course plays a role, the connection of that curriculum to other programs at our institutions, asked all of us to consider pretty simply stated, but a very difficult question. What do we want our students to know, understand, and be able to do? What are we trying to accomplish in our classes, in our assignments, in our discussions, in our discipline? What's it all about? How transparent are we in explaining all of this? To ourselves first, to our students, maybe to parents, to administrators, to employers, to a whole range of stakeholders. What are we all about? How do we know we're accomplishing our goals? All of this has been tied to what's referred to as outcomes-based teaching and learning. What are the outcomes of the work we do? What bodies of knowledge, what sets of skills do we hope to convey? And I know that many of you, probably all of you, joining this discussion, have been part of these discussions with the AHA on your home campus, with your colleagues, and you've probably seen the way it also connects to other AHA initiatives. One initiative it's tied into, maybe some of you have been involved with this, is career diversity. Not just asking of our students, what sets of knowledge and skills do they come away with? What sets of knowledge and skills do we have? Those of us in the academic field, those of us who want to take these bodies of disciplinary knowledge and skills to other fields. We've also been asking this question in relation to secondary education. Many of us have been involved with discussions with high school teachers about the framework that they use in history courses. Sometimes teachers using a so-called C3 framework focused on college, careers, civics. We've also been involved in a range of projects about the contents of our courses, projects like Bridging Cultures. All of these initiatives that have been going on for about a decade and a half in the American Historical Association, they've all been part of this outcomes-based approach to teaching and learning. And more recently, many of us have been involved with an approach that takes another focus. Not just an outcomes-based approach, but one that ties an outcomes-based approach to an equity-based approach to teaching and learning. Focused on those of us teaching introductory courses, which is probably a large group of us, 100 or 1,000 level history courses, courses that are part of general education, courses that we often think of as gateway courses that are supposed to open up the world of post-secondary education to our students. And as we found out, unfortunately, courses that sometimes and very often act as roadblocks to the advance of students in higher education. This is all tied to the History Gateways project. And it takes those elements of outcomes-based approaches to learning, tying them in with equity-based approaches. Who are our students in the classroom? How much do we know about them? What they bring into a classroom, what they want to get out of a classroom, what they're trying to achieve, how we can best help them in understanding our discipline and our basic goals and how those goals apply to their lives. The work of the College Board in redesigning AP courses and AP history exams, it's tied up with the same kinds of interests that we've been working on for so many years at the AHA. The College Board has been carefully observing what the discussions that have been going on in the AHA, the discussions surrounding outcomes-based learning and equity-based learning. They're partners with us in this work. They share our goals. And the attention that the College Board and the American Historical Association bring to these projects focuses on the learning, the guidance, the success we want to provide to an ever diversifying student body. That's the broad framework of this discussion about redesign in AP history courses and exams, tied so closely to the work that we've been doing for so many years.
Hi, I'm Norm Jones. I'm a professor emeritus of history at Utah State University, where I taught European history for all my career. And I'm delighted to talk with you about AP today. I've been working with AP now for over a decade, and I've learned a great deal about it. But I didn't start out being a convert to AP. My first AP experience was in high school, where one day the principal came and said, "There's this test I want you to take." So I went into the principal's office, in his own office, and sat down and I took this test. I wrote a great essay on the Truman Doctrine. A few months later, I went off to college and they said, "Oh, you've got 6 credits in American history." I didn't actually know I'd taken an AP test, but I had, and that's what happened. So I didn't have any context for the test that I took. I never took a class. I never did anything. I just took this thing and they gave me credit for it. So then fast forward, for 18 years, I was the chair of the history department at Utah State. And I became quite familiar with AP's history offerings in American, World, and European because, of course, we were seeing these come across on transcripts. And when a student would come in and say, "I want to be a history major," you have to say, "What do we do with these AP credits?" Well, we would say, "That's nice, but we want you to make up all those credits by taking more history classes." Luckily, most history majors didn't have a problem with that, but it was a sort of disrespecting of what the students had been able to show by taking the test, even though they were getting some credit somewhere for it. So for all those years I was doing that, I was also working in general education, and eventually I became Utah State's director of general education. And in that role, I began to appreciate the AP much more because I was seeing the whole spectrum of what AP does. And I also needed to understand more about it. You know, if a student came in and said, "Well, I don't need to take that class because I've got this AP thing and they're trying to make me take this class," you know, you had to ask the question, well, are they trying to make you take the same class again? And is that right? So I began to learn. And somewhere along the line, Kathy Brigham from AP approached me about holding a meeting on our campus with all the departments that were receiving AP matching credit. So US history came to the history department, the history department should be in the meeting. And it was there that I began to understand that the AP tests were being rebuilt and redesigned. And in that rethinking process, which is being done by professional teams of history professors, they were taking on board not only previous criticisms of the AP test, but also all the latest that we knew about pedagogy and all the reforms that were going along with it. So I'd been involved in the tuning project since it began in the United States in 2009. I think my department was one of the first departments in the United States to actually have a tuned curriculum. So I understood that conversation. What I saw is AP in the same conversation. What does a student need to know, understand, and be able to do is the tuning question. And AP was asking the same question, but they were also asking, how do we prove that they did it in a very scientific way? And one of the things that I was watching them do was change the AP history tests. So there was less and less who's buried in Grant's tomb and when was the War of 1812, and a lot more long essay, critical, analytical sorts of things in the test. The DBQs, the document-based questions. Essentially, the tests are saying there are two things we're going to teach you. We're going to teach you historical critical thinking, and we're going to teach you content. And those two work together all the time. It's layered in the curriculum. And so when you get to the test, you're given the documents and you're said, here's your prompt, write an essay using the documents. It's exactly the sort of thing we would like to see. This is not the old-fashioned bubble test. This is the essay test that all historians use to measure quality. So I became very respectful of what AP was doing because I understood what they were doing and I saw the people who were doing it and the deep commitment of AP to give a course which looks like what the colleges expect. Eventually, I became a member of the AP Higher Education Advisory Committee, and over time, then I ended up chairing that committee. So I came to know even more about AP, more about its very careful design, more about how it builds classes, how it provides resources for students and teachers. If you haven't looked at the AP Daily, you should, because there are all sorts of things you can steal for your class because they're eminent professors like Ed Ayers that we're going to see in me on the webinar. Ed has a lecture in there. I also have a lecture in there. But if you need something for your class that takes a scholar who's well known in the field and says, tell us about this, you'll get it. It's all free. It's all there. But these are the tools that they put into the hands of history teachers who are teaching AP. So AP tests were based upon the same goals that the history programs had. They are based upon the broader pedagogical knowledge that has come out of things like the AAC and U's values rubrics. And they are trying to prove that a student who gets a 3 on an AP is every bit as prepared as a student who gets a C in your class. I suspect they are even better prepared than that. Because the AP history tests test history. They're very, very good. So I have no problem now, after all these years, of saying, no, if that student came to me with an AP, I would say that demonstrates that they have got the learning they need to move to the next level. And that's a question I think we need to ask ourselves as historians. If students are coming in with the AP, are we blowing them off for having it, saying you took a seat away from us, cost us money? Or should we be saying that is a student we wanted in our classes? How do we recruit them into the major? How do we create a curriculum that is attractive to that kind of student? And one of the things we've learned with the AHA working with the Gardner Institute in the Gateways Project is that now the students who are coming into our surveys are the ones who haven't got that. So we got these populations, those who didn't have any of these things, no AP, no concurrent enrollment. They're the ones coming into a lot of our surveys. And then we have the students who are ready to go to a higher level in the curriculum. And we don't think about them as an audience we want to recruit, but I think we should be recruiting it. So as we talk today about history and AP, please ask us your questions, and please know that this is a deeply responsive organization. Being on this advisory committee, I've seen nothing but we want to know what the professors are thinking because we've got to do something that professors respect. So I hope that you'll come out of this with a deeper respect for it. And as historians, and understanding that there is an enormous effort out there to make people historically literate and teach them to think critically as historians. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sharika Crawford, and I'm an associate professor of history at the United States Naval Academy. I currently serve as a member of the AP World History Modern Test Development Committee. Since the founding of the AP program more than 60 years ago, all AP courses and exams have been built and overseen by committees of educators, both experienced high school classroom teachers and university faculty members. The College Board serves as stewards of the program, bringing together the faculty and teachers who write exam questions and create curriculum frameworks. College and university faculty contribute to the success of the AP program in many ways. First, faculty help to create courses. Whenever College Board develops a new course or revises an existing course, a Curriculum Development Advisory Committee, also known as CDAC, is formed. It's made up of higher ed professors who are familiar with teaching the survey course. College Board also collects detailed research and data from higher educational institutions on course content and targets for assessments. Second, College Board relies on faculty not only in creating, but also reviewing and approving exams. Each course has a development committee. It is composed of university faculty members and high school teachers. Faculty serve on this committee in order to leverage their subdiscipline expertise. And this is the role that I'm currently serving in this capacity. And finally, College Board depends on college and university faculty at the reading of the exams. They are involved as readers, and some may take on an array of leadership positions, including the chief reader, who organizes and manages the reading. This is the term that we use to describe the scoring of the exams for a given AP course. It is in this capacity that I was first introduced to the AP exam and curriculum. I served as a reader several years ago for world history. I was there to learn how to score the essay components of the exam. And over the years, I have developed warm collegial relationships and friendships with high school teachers across the United States and other university and college faculty, from community colleges to big state research institutions. At first, I was somewhat skeptical about not just the exam component per se, but the AP curriculum. But I've been pleasantly and tremendously surprised by the thoughtfulness in the execution of the curriculum and the dedication of the high school teachers who have taken on sometimes summer professional development courses. And I've also met countless colleagues who have also shared with me a variety of kind of pedagogical techniques that I bring back to my own classroom. So for me, the AP experience has been one in which I've not only earned some additional outside money from beyond my teaching at my institution, but more importantly, I view it as a form of professional development. I see it as an opportunity to extend my network. And therefore, it's important for us to keep in mind that faculty involvement in the College Board AP courses, whether you do world history or some other field of history, is extremely important. I'd like to introduce to you next Tim Keirn. He's a former chief reader for the AP World History course and exam, and he is going to be talking about equity and access.
Greetings, everybody. My name is Tim Keirn, and I currently serve as the director and chair of the University Secondary Education Program at California State University, Long Beach. I was formerly the coordinator of the History Social Science Credential Program in the History Department at CSULB. I'm speaking to you from my home in Long Beach. As you may or may not know, instruction in the CSU is online and access to my office is limited. And I apologize at the onset that I live by an airport. So we may hear a few aircraft going overhead as I make my comments. To provide some context and a sense of scale, the CSULB Secondary Credential Program is a minority-majority program, and we have the largest secondary credential program in the state of California. A third of our teacher candidates are in fact first-generation college students. This fall semester alone, we have roughly 225 student teaching candidates in 9 different disciplines, teaching remotely or in hybrid classrooms in 40 different districts throughout Southern California. Our largest program, of course, is History Social Science, and 50 of our current student teachers are student teaching in history or various social science disciplines. I'm also the former chief reader for AP World History. Through the end of my term in 2018, for 25 years in a row, I attended an AP reading every June or perhaps late May, first doing this in European history and later in world history. This journey took me to 7 different cities and states, and I'm immensely grateful for all the professional learning opportunities and friendships I established with high school and college teachers of history that I met along the way. Very important to me. So the first thing I'm going to be talking about sort of access and opportunity in AP, and I first want to talk about access to AP in a sort of generic way. So currently AP is available in roughly 23,000 high schools, and 90% of students who attend a high school where AP is offered. At high schools offering AP, the average number of courses offered is 11, and AP exams are taken currently by more than close to 3 million, 2.7 million students annually. 70% of students attending a 4-year institution have taken an AP exam. While there is concern about students completing an inordinate number of AP courses as means of distinguishing themselves in competitive application processes, in fact, most AP students are completing 1 to 3 AP courses and exams, and the modal rate is actually just over 1. So I want to talk a little bit about the relationship then between AP and college access and success. High school GPA is a very important predictor of college academic success, but AP provides compelling additional insight into student readiness for college and or their interest in a particular major. AP students take more, not fewer, college courses in their AP discipline, and students who take an AP exam in a content area like history are more likely to major or minor in history or a related discipline while in college. AP is predictive of college outcomes and correlated with higher cumulative GPAs and greater timeliness to degree. AP students who place out of an introductory course do as well or better in subsequent college courses than non-AP students who took the AP equivalent course while in college. While higher scores on AP exams track to higher rates of on-time degree, simply participating in AP coursework and exams, regardless of score, still correlates to higher GPA and rates of on-time degree completion for both minoritized and white students. And AP also provides access to, in history in particular, to rigorous and meaningful history instruction. I'm going to make a few comments about this. As others have or will discuss, AP history provides high school students the opportunity to engage with rigorous and meaningful history teaching and learning. The focus of the recently redesigned AP courses is on supporting student understanding and application, and I'm using history educator Peter Lee's terminology here, application of the procedural as opposed to the content knowledge of history. In doing so, this has shifted and projected learning in AP history courses from a focus on what we know to how we know it. And 90% of the AP history exam items assess, in very sophisticated ways, in my view, a variety of historical thinking skills and dispositions. These include historical argumentation and the sourcing and evaluation of evidence, understanding and the application of contextualization, assesses the analysis of causation, comparison, and change over time in history. The exam also examines and analyzes the application and understanding of historiographic thinking and processes. And very importantly, I would argue all these are not skills that are simply germane to history, but they're also transferable skills to career and college readiness. Very important. I would argue that the rigor of AP history courses and exams contrasts with the vast majority of state high school curriculums and standards, which focus instead, again, using Peter Lee's terminology, on the sedimentary knowledge of history, i.e. facts, dates, etc. Speaking here from California, we have a new framework, which is a big improvement on the old framework, and it has a much more inclusive history content. But there's still within the framework little emphasis on historical thinking. And in most districts, teachers are still teaching to the state content standards that in fact were not changed when the framework was revised. There are also significant advantages from my perspective for future teacher candidates in taking AP history. If we want the students in high school to be historical thinkers, their teachers need to be historical thinkers, and taking AP is the ability, provides the opportunity for future teachers to become historical thinkers themselves. AP history for teacher candidates also supports curricular opportunities to meet state subject matter certification through coursework. In California, for example, using those courses towards subject matter accreditation programs, as opposed to taking various tests to meet subject matter certification. Tests like CSET in California or Praxis in other parts of the country. These exams, again, are very much focused on the testing of factual information and not the sort of epistemological or disciplinary thinking associated with history. AP history for future teacher candidates also creates curricular space, especially in public institutions where there's much push on timeliness to degree, creates a curricular space for from AP placement that creates opportunities to minor in related social science fields, or vice versa, in political science, economics, and government. That said, well, I've been talking about access and opportunity. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done in this area. The number of students of color taking AP has increased significantly over the last decade, and rates of success on exams has kept pace. However, the differentiation in exam performance is persistent between racial and social groups, and this needs to be addressed. What are some ways that we can address this? First, I think we need to recognize that the social and emotional constructs and supports for teaching and learning are just as important for the AP classroom, if not more, as they are for the general education classroom. Secondly, AP instruction needs to be delivered in culturally responsive and sustaining ways, and in all disciplines. I'm not just talking about history here. Students need to see themselves in the AP curriculum, be it in AP history or US history or chemistry or English literature. Moreover, AP instruction needs to be much more asset framed as opposed to deficit framing of student performance. We need to affirm the cultural and locational knowledge that all students bring to their AP classroom, and we need to end the deficit framing of performance where 2 is quote unquote a fail and 3 is a pass. Professional learning opportunities for AP teachers then should address all these issues as they relate to social and emotional constructs for learning and culturally responsive pedagogies. Finally, I think we need to continue to work to diversify the AP teacher force and leadership. This is a national challenge to diversify the teacher force. Number of students of color in public schools is actually increasing faster than the growth in the number of teachers of color, meaning that the diversity gap is actually widening as we speak. The relative diversity of these the teacher force is also correlated with age cohorts. We know that younger cohorts of teacher are considerably more diverse than older cohorts of teachers. This is especially the case in AP, and we need to support and expand the pool of teachers of color who teach AP and those teaching in urban schools, urban public schools, and through access, hopefully we can have more access, we'll have more access to the AP reading and have opportunities to rise to positions of teacher leadership in AP programs. So I'm conscious of time here, and I'd now like to pass the conversation on to Jen Foray. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Foray. I am a faculty member at Purdue University in West Lafayette, Indiana. I have been a member of the Test Development Committee for European History for about 5 years or so, and I serve on the leadership at the annual reading of the AP Euro exam, where we create the standards for assessment and we help train hundreds of high school teachers and university faculty to grade the thousands of free response essays written by our students. At Purdue, I routinely teach History 104, which is our European History, AP European History course equivalent. My course lasts roughly about 1500 to 1990. It's mostly chronologically organized and chronologically driven, but it's also focused a great deal on skills such as contextualization, primary source analysis. And I've built in a lot of this based on my work with AP European History. It's a large lecture class, as you might expect at a large public university, but it's focused a great deal on writing and discussion, at least as much as discussion is allowable under our current social distancing and other requirements. I am teaching in person right now. I'd like to say that the AP course redesign has very much changed the way this course looks from that which we took as high schoolers, maybe even our children took as high schoolers. For one, it's much more aligned with college courses in its emphasis on reading and interpreting both primary and secondary sources. Topically, of course, it's kind of the same material that we went through. This is a European history course, most obviously, but it's also very aligned with the larger discipline of history in terms of skills, in terms of how we talk about our work as historians, why and how it matters, making connections with other fields. I will also say too that compared to at least the course that I teach, AP European History students and faculty are able to experience a much more exhaustive even and intensive version of the course. They have more FaceTime hours. They have the opportunity to explore certain subjects in more detail. I simply don't have the hours, the class hours and credits hours to be able to focus on everything in detail in my class. But teachers have more contact hours with their high school students in AP Euro, and they have more opportunities to discuss various types of assignments, to write shorter and longer assignments, to explore certain subjects in greater detail using those assignments. European history, AP European History is a far-reaching course, but it is also one with a very clear curriculum framework, so students and teachers know what to expect. This is not a matter of just dropping trivia on students. And I remember in my AP European History course in high school, as much as I loved it, there was definitely an air of unpredictability around it. That is not what I would say is the case right now. Students and teachers know what to expect, maybe not what they'll be asked exactly, but there's a range of subjects that everyone shares in common, and a range of skills that everyone shares in common as well. I will say that at my class at Purdue, no small numbers of students come to my class with AP credit in other histories. Sometimes they come having taken an AP Euro class, but didn't score the 4 or 5 necessary to gain credits. And in my experience, I found that they're comfortable understanding the very nature of a primary source. So if they've taken AP US history and then they come to my class, they may not know the subject matter, of course, but they feel much more comfortable hitting the ground running in the beginning, working with primary sources, being able to read them, to be able to summarize them, a really basic but key skill. To contextualize them, to otherwise interpret them, and to mobilize them in source of a larger argument. That's something that's very much privileged in all of the AP history courses. I've also found that regardless of major, and most of the students who come to my intro class at Purdue are not majors, they're not even liberal arts students. Those students who've taken another AP history, for example, are more willing and able to work with secondary sources. They understand how historians use primary sources and other pieces of evidence to craft those secondary sources. They feel more comfortable inserting them into debates about historical topics, which we often see in secondary sources. It creates a really important access point. And again, it doesn't mean that they understand the material or the context, but they feel much more comfortable engaging with what we do as historians. I want to point to a final example then of, I think, one key point of the redesigned AP European History class and what I like so much about it. I also did a great deal of work with the rubric redesign in the last 5 years or so. And the current rubric for assessing student writing different kinds of essays has what we often call in shorthand as the complexity point. And this is how it reads. It demonstrates a complex understanding of the historical development that is the focus of the prompt, using evidence to corroborate, qualify, or modify an argument that addresses the question. And what that does is it allows students and it rewards students for doing what it is that historians actually do on a daily basis. Certainly what I enjoy doing most as a historian, which is looking at and exploring complexity, nuance, those moments where you pose questions that don't really have clear answers. They might not even have answers at all. It's using contradictory evidence. It's saying, well, I know I've made this argument. However, we can use this evidence to create a different argument entirely. And so students, and a lot of students do this naturally, but now they're being taught how to do it and they learn how to do it and they're comfortable doing it. They're moving away from these binaries. It allows some students to really explore the complexity and the richness of history as a discipline. Again, something that really drives what I do and really excites me in my own research and writing and teaching. And I think it really helps students engage with the discipline of history well before they enter the college classroom. So those are some of my thoughts on the redesign and how it affects the college classroom. I would like to thank you for taking the time to watch this session, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the webinar. Thank you.